The Vor'Kell Armada did not arrive quietly. They spilled out of folded space like a metallic storm, a lattice of silver-black holes catching the light of an unfamiliar star. Formation patterns shifted with mathematical grace, each ship locking into its place as if the universe itself had been designed to accommodate them. On the bridge of the flagship Dominion Spear, High Commander Carix stood with his hands behind his back, mandibles relaxed, 4 eyes half-lidded. It was almost boring now. "Planetary shields at 4%, reported Tactical. "Their final broadcasts have ceased." Carix nodded. "Standard terms offered?" "Yes, Commander. They refused." "As they all do." He exhaled, not quite a sigh. "Complete integration protocol, minimal infrastructure damage. We have use for their industry." Weapons cycled, beams fired, orbitals fell. Defensive platforms bloomed briefly, then went dark. The planet's aurora flared white as systems overloaded, then faded into a placid, defeated glow. "Mark it," Carix said. The scribe node chimed. "World 999 successfully pacified, adding to the ledger." 1,000 conquered worlds, 1,000 broken banners replaced with the crest of the Vor'Kell Dominion. Carix had been at the helm for the last 100, a lifetime of clean, efficient subjugation. "Next target?" he asked. Navigator brought up the projection, a 3-dimensional web of stars. One node pulsed at the edge of the chart in a quiet spiral arm. "Unaligned system," Navigator said. "Designation Sol. Primary habitable. 3rd planet. Native life. Industrial-level civilization. No FTL." "Pre-contact?" Carix tilted his head. "No interstellar navy?" "None detected," Navigator confirmed. The bridge buzzed with mild amusement. Some officers liked these ones, the ones that still thought their skies were empty. "Very well," Carix said. "Prepare survey probes. We do not waste resources. Scan, assess, eliminate, integrate." The mantra rolled through the bridge like a familiar song. The Armada turned as one. Drives flared white gold. Space folded, unfolded. Stars blurred, realigned. In the dark between systems, where only navigation ghosts existed, Carix allowed himself a moment of detachment. 1,000 worlds. He wondered how many more the ledger would hold by the time his carapace finally stopped regenerating. The Sol system resolved on the main display. A yellow star, comfortable and calm, with a family of planets flung loosely around it. "Primary target, Sol 3, Navigator intoned. "Local name, Earth." "So small," someone murmured. "Begin bioscan," Carix ordered. "Let us see what kind of animals we are about to educate." The probes fanned out, invisible to any radio telescope that might have been listening. They sniffed atmospheres, swept magnetic fields, tasted the chemical stew of the planet below. Data streamed back. And then the bridge of the Dominion Spear went very, very quiet. The bioscan symbol stopped spinning. "Commander," biospecialist's frills had gone rigid. "The biosphere is standard. Water, nitrogen, oxygen, varied life. But the dominant species—" "Yes?" Carix snapped. "We've detected a match." "That is impossible." "Genetic signatures," he whispered. "Overlaid with ancient archive markers. High correlation. Commander, the dominant species of Earth shares key genetic markers with the Atherion." Now even the ship's AI hesitated. In the silence, the Armada's Central Protocol Core pinged an old dormant subroutine. "Alert! Airline detected. Override. Conquest doctrine suspended." Engines flickered. Ships drifted. An armada that had never stopped for anyone stopped at Earth. Correct stared at the bioscan overlay, as if glaring might change the data. On the holo, a human figure rotated slowly, skeletal and muscular structure rendered in neutral blues. Overlaid in ghostly white was another figure, taller, more gracile, unfamiliar, and yet eerily similar. Points of shared emphasis blinked: gene clusters, sequences, cellular markers. Probability bars rose and locked in the red. "Cross-check against archival set Theta," Carrick said. His voice came out too calm. The ship's AI hesitated. "Theta set is sealed under Prohibition Protocol, access restricted to Council and above." "This is above," Carrex growled. "Override my authority." Silence stretched, then, reluctantly, override accepted. Ancient data unspooled. Fragments of images flickered through the air. Ruined cities not made by the Vor'Kell. Constellations in different positions. Figures walking under artificial suns. And the Atherion. No one said the name aloud. It had a taste, like electric metal. The species that had ruled before history settled. The ones who had set rules so binding even conquerors obeyed them. The projection sharpened. An Atherion face, smooth and luminous, eyes too deep, features graceful and deadly. The overlay shifted to show human bone structure, then snapped both together. Comparing. Match, 87.442%. Deviation, within permissible evolutionary divergence range. "Biospecialist," Carrex said quietly. The smaller officer's frills trembled. "Commander, the likelihood of random convergence at this level is infinitesimal. The data says what it says. This species, humanity, shares the hairline markers." He choke-clicked on the formal term. Hairline. Warlord-level officers on the bridge exchanged uneasy looks. Legends whispered and training halls surfaced. The Atherion had not fallen in war. They had departed, withdrawn beyond, leaving behind only ruins and protocols. Among those protocols, strict injunctions encoded deep into the galaxy's oldest navigational nets. Do not trespass upon their seed worlds. Do not wage war against their heirs. "Protocol Core confirms?" Carrex asked. The AI responded, voice subdued. "Affirmative. Hairline density exceeds threshold ratio, initiating automatic conquest suspension under Article 1. "Article 1 is myth," someone protested weakly. "Article 1 is older than your species," the AI replied. On the tactical board, the Armada's posture shifted from aggressive lattice to neutral hold. Weapon spines cooled, target locks faded. "It's just a primitive world. They have not contacted anyone. They do not even know we exist," grumbled Weapons. "And yet," Carrex said. He reached out and pinched the projection, zooming in on a double helix. The markers glowed brighter. "We conquered 1,000 worlds, but not one with this signature." Navigator swallowed. "Orders, Commander?" Carrex tasted the air. Old training came back, burned into his nerves generation upon generation. When you detect the hairline, you do not attack. You observe. You report. You pray they're not angry. "Hold position," he said. "No ship is to cross the orbit of the third planet. Lock weapons, no targeting solutions. We are blind specks until further notice." Biospecialist whispered, barely audible, "What if they notice us anyway?" Carrex didn't answer. because that question led somewhere even warlords didn't like to go. The Council of Nine did not meet in person. Their bodies were too scattered across the Dominion, embedded in fortress moons, citadel worlds, data lattices woven into the dark between stars. But when something like this happened, they projected themselves into a shared chamber made of hard light and older fear. Karex stood alone at the center, his presence rendered in exact detail, save for one small intentional flaw. His scars were smoothed, his carapace slightly brighter. It would not do to appear anything but exemplary before the Nine. "Repeat your report," intoned a voice like grinding ice. Karex did, carefully. Discovery of soul, bioscan anomalies, confirmed airline markers, automatic invocation of prohibition protocol. When he finished, there was a long silence. A smaller counselor broke it first. "The last confirmed Atherion site is dated at 200 millennia," she said. "Since then, only ruins, nothing living. And now you claim?" "I do not claim," Karex said. "Our instruments do, our own laws do." "Laws made under duress," rumbled another. "We were young then. We still believed we could challenge them." "We still remember what happened when we tried," hissed a third. Images flickered around the chamber. A Vor'Kell fleet, primitive by modern standards, firing on a quiet, unassuming ring in deep space. The ring waking up. The brief, blinding flare as hundreds of ships became dust. A single message etched into navnets across 1,000 sectors. "This is not your domain." After that, the Dominion had grown sideways, around the scars the Atherion left behind, never against them, never towards their seeded zones. Earth lies within a marked blind region, the Archivist Counselor said. "We thought those markers corrupted, glitches, but this changes things." "So we kneel?" asked the smallest voice in the room, bitter. "To children who have never left their cradle?" No one answered that directly. "Archivist rotated the human genetic projection," he said. "We do not know if they know what they are. For all we know, the airline on this world is dormant, evolving, quiet." "And if it wakes?" asked another. Karex lifted his chin. "If they learn what they carry, they will not be as they are now. They will be more, as the Atherion were. Maybe weaker, maybe stranger, but not prey." "Can they hurt us now?" asked a heavy-set counselor. "Not with ships," Karex said, "but we do not know what latent protections might exist." The council shivered in collective memory. "Options?" the chair murmured. "Withdraw," one said. "Observe," another countered. "Inform them," said a third, shocking the room into silence. "You would tell them? Hand them the keys to their throne?" "If we do not," the bold counselor said, "someone else will, or they'll learn the hard way. I would rather greet a curious child than an angry sovereign." Karex watched the argument, feeling something he hadn't known since his first campaign. Uncertainty. Finally, the chair's voice cut through. "Decision. Conquest protocol remains suspended. The Armada will hold. A covert observation team will be dispatched. You, Karex, will remain as shield and witness." "And if they reach for the stars?" Karex asked. Then the chair said quietly, "We will see what kind of heirs they choose to be." The counselors winked out, one by one, leaving Karex standing alone in the fading light of their fear. Earth was noisy. Karex reviewed the observation feeds from the stealth platforms now seeded throughout the Sol system. They clung to dark orbits, masked behind moons and debris, lenses trained on a world that spun in blue, white, and green. The first time he saw a human city at night, he thought of infection. Clusters of light wrapped around coastlines and river mouths, pulsing with traffic. Even from orbit, you could see the flows. Tiny moving fireflies of vehicles, blinking aircraft, satellites carrying their primitive, babbling transmissions. "They broadcast constantly," muttered Seraphin, the appointed cultural analyst, their frills rippling. "Noise across half the spectrum, entertainment, data, anger, joy. They pour themselves into the sky." "Can they see us?" Carix asked. "Not yet," Seraphin said. "Their telescopes are quaint. They see asteroids, weather. They argue if anyone else exists at all." Carix listened to fragmentary audio, laughter, shouting, news anchors, music that made his carapace itch in oddly pleasant ways. Faces flicked past. So many faces. "They war with each other," Seraphin continued. "Frequently. They draw invisible lines and decide that those on the other side are wrong, or less, or dangerous. They build weapons that could scar their world and then argue about how much they should use them." "Savages," someone muttered over the link. "Creators," Seraphin countered. "They make art about everything, stories about everything. They imagine their own destruction in 100 flavors, and also their own salvation." Carix zoomed in on an image. Children in a playground, running, shouting, inventing rules to games on the fly. Another, a lab, where humans argued over sensor readings beside a chalkboard full of equations and coffee rings. "How long until they reach space properly?" he asked. Seraphin ran models. Earth's rockets, fragile and temperamental, clawed their way just beyond atmosphere, dropping metal boxes into low orbit. "Decades," they said. "Perhaps a century. They are clever but disorganized." The bioscan overlay still pulsed at the edge of his display. A reminder. Airline density, high. Activation markers, unknown. Carix watched a human child on a screen, lying on their back in grass, staring at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" the human's parent asked, from somewhere off camera. "Up there," the child said. "What it feels like." "You think anything's out there?" the parent asked. The child smiled. "I hope so." The feed cut to a commercial. Bright colors, fast voices, barely understandable. "They do not know," Carix said. Seraphin's frills fluttered. "No, and yet they behave as if something is waiting, as if the universe is a story they intend to join." Carix tasted the air, thoughtful. In other campaigns, he would be planning orbital strikes by now, calculating despair curves. Here he found himself wondering about cadence in their music. "Do they hate us?" he asked suddenly. Seraphin blinked. "They do not know we exist." "Yes, but if they did, would they?" Seraphin considered the question longer than protocol required. "He think they would hate what we have done, but not who we are. They seem very willing to imagine themselves into other skins." On the screen, a human actor in a film spoke to an alien prosthetic, reaching out a hand. Carix shut the feed. He disliked feeling seen by people who had never met him. The Atherion archive didn't live in a vault. It lived in a ship. Deep in the Armada, trailing the battle line, drifted a vessel older than any commander aboard, the Remembrancer. It wasn't built by Vor'Kell hands. Its surfaces were too smooth, its curves too strange, its inscrutable panels humming with energies no engineer could fully map. Carix docked with it, alone. Inside, the air felt different,
thinner, charged. Light seemed to bend more gently around edges. The corridors were quiet, save for the faint murmur of machines that had never once bowed to Vor'Kell commands. At the core, a sphere waited. Not metal, not quite energy, a swirling, translucent node of information, the Atherion core. "Query," Carrick said, standing before it. "Designation, Airline Saw 3. The sphere pulsed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then images bloomed around him. Earth, not as it was, but as it had been long before humans built cities. Lush, raw, young. Figures walked its forests and beaches. Tall, graceful, clearly not human, yet moving with the familiarity of someone on an old, beloved path. "Seed World, Terra Class," the core whispered in a voice that wasn't sound. "Status, isolated. Development, unsupervised. Intent, long-form evolution." Fragments of Atherion language hung in the air, translated haltingly by the ship's AI. "What were you doing?" Carrick asked, more to himself than to the core. The sphere responded with another cascade, star charts, conflict maps, echoes of battles so intense that the data itself seemed scorched. "Fret, extragalactic entities. Probability of total loss, 87%. Carrick watched phantom Atherion ships engaging something vast and unseen beyond the rim. He saw them lose, not all at once, in dignified strategic retreat. Contingency, line continuity, select worlds marked, life code seeded, time horizon greater than 200,000 cycles. Earth reappeared, now with early primates scurrying through trees. "You hid yourselves in them," Carrick murmured. The sphere swirled. "Not hid, rewrote." Humans appeared in fast-forward, fire, tools, cities, wars, songs, rockets. No Atherion ships swooped in to guide them, no godlike figures descended. Just humans, stumbling and raving and building and loving. Result: divergent air expression, less stable, more creative, unknown potential. Carrick felt something cold in his stomach. "Were they meant to return?" he asked. The core's light dimmed, as if considering. "Uncertain. Original makers gone. Heirs, your problem." He barked out a humorless laugh. "There is a protocol," he said. "We do not harm them." "There is a wisdom," the core countered. "Harm at small scale, harm at large scale. Theirs has always been both." "What happens if we leave them alone?" Carrick asked. The core's projections flashed white. He saw, briefly, horribly, what it looked like when an earlier empire had tried that elsewhere. A seeded world turned into a weapon that tore its attackers apart from the inside. Reality bending in protest. Carrick staggered. "You set traps," he whispered. "We set boundaries. They grew teeth." The core dimmed again. "Recommendation: do not strike first. Engage as allies if possible. Do not ignore." Carrick stood in the swirling half-light, feeling very small under the judgment of a dead civilization. "Understood," he said. He wasn't sure he did, but he understood enough to be afraid.
On Earth, Dr. Mia Reyes thought the glitch was her fault. Her telescope array, a cobbled-together patchwork of university grants, private donors, and late-night coding, watched the sky from a desert far from any big city glow. She specialized in transient phenomena, blips, flashes, things that came and went too fast for the big observatories to bother with. Tonight, something blipped. Again? She muttered, leaning closer. That's the third time. On her screen, a tiny object flared just beyond lunar orbit, then seemed to vanish. Not move, not drift, just wink out. Maybe a satellite, suggested her assistant, Liam, through a mouthful of chips. Satellites don't do that, Mia said. They tumble, they decelerate, they don't teleport. Liam shrugged. Software glitch? She rewound the recorded data, squinting at spectral signatures. The object emitted nothing visible, nothing thermal, just a faint distortion in background noise, like a shadow with mass. She frowned. What are you? She pinged a colleague on another continent. Hey, you seeing anything weird at these coordinates? A minute later, nope, clean. She bit her lip. Her brain wanted it to be aliens. Her career wanted it to be a calibration error. Her heart wanted something new. She increased the exposure time, adjusted filters, and set the array to watch that patch of space obsessively. Hundreds of kilometers above, a Vor'Kell stealth platform blinked with mild alarm. Commander, the AI murmured into Carrick's channel, one of their observatories is looking. They lack the sensitivity to see us, Carrick said automatically. Ordinarily, yes, but this one keeps adjusting, learning. They are compensating for our masking, albeit crudely. Show me, Carrick said. The feed overlaid Mia's telescope array interior over the platform's position. There she was, messy bun, dark circles, eyes bright, chasing a glitch she couldn't explain. Just a grad student, someone scoffed. Just the first one, Carrick said. There will be others. On Earth, Mia watched the next frame come in. The blip flared. This time, it didn't vanish immediately. It stretched as if space itself had yawned. Mia's heart hammered. She hit record, backup, screen capture, every reflex firing. Definitely not a satellite, she whispered. Liam leaned in, suddenly very awake. If that's SpaceX, they're not going to admit it. She laughed, breathless. If that's SpaceX, I'll buy a rocket with my Nobel. Outside, beyond all their comprehension, an alien commander realized that the supposedly blind Cradle World had just squinted hard enough to notice the outline of a giant. Not everyone in the Armada was willing to live in the shadow of old ghosts. On the cruiser Iron Vow, Rear Commander Veth cricked his mandibles in irritation, watching Earth spin on his personal display. Beneath the blue clouds lay billions of fragile lives he was not allowed to touch. It is cowardice, he snapped to his second-in-command. We have firepower sufficient to glass that world 3 times over, and we sit here waiting for children to grow teeth. His second shifted uneasily. The prohibition is clear, sir. Airline worlds are not to be attacked directly, Veth cut in. Yes, I've read the myths, heard the campfire stories about rings that eat fleets. That was then. He jabbed a claw at the display. We are stronger now. Our drives are faster. Our weapons are sharper. The Atherion are gone. Their warnings are echoes. His second lowered his voice. And if the echoes still have teeth? Veth's eyes narrowed. Then we die, he said bluntly, but we would die as warriors, not as cowed vassals to a species that hasn't even left its own gravity well. He paced. If we wait, we face an unknown future. These humans, they are not the Atherion. Their behavior profile is more volatile. Imagine them with that genetic toolkit and time. Would you rather face them now, asleep, or later, awake and full of righteous fury? His words found purchase in the fears of those who listened. The High Commander warns against provocation, his second said. High Commander is compromised, Veth replied carefully. He has spent too long in council chambers, breathing old dust. I have read the same archive. It does not say never. It says do not strike first without cause. He zoomed in on a human newsfeed, showing a protest march somewhere on Earth. Humans provide cause every day. They hurt each other. They poison their own world. They build bombs capable of shattering continents, all without our help. He snapped his mandibles shut. I will not be here when they outgrow us. In encrypted channels, Veth began sending feelers to captains restless at the enforced inaction, to logistics officers who saw their supply lines stretched, to younger warriors itching for glory. We don't need to attack openly, he whispered to his allies. We just test, nudge their environment, trigger a conflict. If they respond, we learn. If they break, we remove a future threat. No one called it mutiny. Not yet. But somewhere between the lines, between the rules of prohibition and the hunger to remain the biggest predator in the dark, a new doctrine began to crystallize. If the heirs are too dangerous to face later, break them before they know what they are.
Mia didn't expect the night visitor. She was alone in the observatory lab, screens glowing in the dark, coffee cooling beside her keyboard. Outside, the desert slept under a sky so crowded with stars it felt like an audience. The blip had returned. This time, it hadn't just winked, it had shifted, moved in a way that matched no orbital model she knew. Her code flagged it as erratic, which was programmer speak for "we have no idea." She rewound and played the sequence again. On the third replay, something else happened. The blip looked back. She wasn't sure why she thought that. Maybe it was the tiny lens flare effect, the way the distortion seemed to swivel, aligning perfectly with her line of sight. Her skin prickled. "Okay," she whispered. "If you're a bug in my software, congratulations, you're creepy." A voice behind her said, "Your software is adequate." She jolted, chairs spinning. "Holy—" A figure stood in the doorway. Not human. Tall, carapaced, 4 eyes, 2 pairs of arms, wearing a uniform that managed to look both alien and uncomfortably military. The air around him shimmered faintly, as if reality itself were catching up with the fact that he was indoors now. Mia's brain did 3 things at once: screamed, cataloged everything, and started backing up data instinctively. "You are Dr. Mia Reyes," the alien said, enunciating carefully. His accent made consonants sound both sharper and softer. Yes," she said, "and you are extremely not supposed to be here." He considered this. "Correct."
He stepped farther into the room, hands raised in what she hoped was a universal, "I'm not here to stab you" gesture. "I am Codrix, High Commander of the He stopped, corrected himself, "of a fleet in your orbit." Mia's heart pounded. "So, aliens? Real? Here?" "Yes. And you just walked in? No radio message? No big dramatic landing? No 'take me to your leader'?" He tilted his head. "Who would that be?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "Fair point. What do you want?" she asked.
Veth did not wait for permission. On the Iron Vows bridge, he stood over a bespoke tactical display that ignored the prohibition flags blinking angrily in one corner. "Target?" his weapons officer asked quietly. Veth studied the system model. He wouldn't strike Earth directly. That would be suicidal. "You see that moon?" he said, indicating Europa. "Ice shell, subsurface ocean, potential biosphere. They've dreamed of it for decades, a symbol of their future expansion." He traced an arc that ended in a crimson impact point. "We hit there," he said. "We make it look like a natural disaster. Comet strike." They panic. Their world governments accuse each other of secret weapons. They destabilize. We learn how they handle existential fear. His weapons officer hesitated. "And if the prohibition does not cover stray rocks," Veth snapped. "We are not firing on the heres. We are adjusting their environment." He gave the order. A small kinetic package detached from the cruiser, wrapped in layers of stealth and inert mass. It slipped through the Armada's defensive web like a ghost, angled toward the Jovian system. In the command mesh, alarms went off. On the Dominion spear, Carex felt the disturbance like a spike in his spine. "Who authorized a launch?" he barked. "Unknown trajectory, non-standard signature, origin, Iron Vow." Carex's eyes flared. "Veth," he snarled. He opened a wideband channel. "Rear Commander, you will abort that strike." No answer. The package sped up, dragged by gravity wells. Mia, back on Earth, sat with Carex in the dim observatory as he explained the basics, layering translated concepts over crude holograms projected from a device on his wrist. "So you've been orbiting us," she said, "watching, deciding if we're house pets or a bomb." "That is a crude analogy," he said, "but not inaccurate." An alert flashed across his vision. He stiffened. "What?" Mia asked. He didn't answer. In high orbit, fields shifted. Invisible hands reached for the speeding package. "Prohibition cascade detected," the AI reported. "Local physics divergence increasing. Commander, the system is disagreeing." On the trajectory plot, something impossible happened. Space around the kinetic strike wrinkled. The projectile's path bent, not according to any gravitational body, but according to an axis that didn't exist in normal equations. It slowed, stopped, hung there, a stone held in the air by a hand no one could see. Then it happened. Not exploded, not vaporized. It simply ceased to be an object. Alarms across the Armada cut off mid-wail, as if embarrassed. In the deep of space, an old Atherion failsafe yawned, sniffed, and checked its calendar. "Query, hairline status, response, active, unaware." The failsafe went back to sleep. Carex sagged, tension draining.
"Veth is a fool," he muttered. He nearly woke the teeth. Mia stared at the floating projection, not fully understanding, but knowing she'd just seen something big fail to happen. "What was that?" she asked. "Proof," Carrick said bitterly, "that we are not the only ones watching you."
They met one last time before Carrick's left. Mia stood outside the observatory. Night air cool, stars sharp. Carrick's shimmer field made him a vague distortion to any passing camera, but to her he was as solid as the rocks under her boots. "So," she said, "let me see if I have this right." She ticked points off on her fingers. Number 1, giant empire in orbit, capable of flattening us, currently not doing that. "Correct," Carrick said. Number 2, because my species has cosmic royal blood from a civilization that makes your empire nervous? Also correct. Number 3, said ancient civilization left tripwires, automatic do-not-touch systems, which your idiot colleague just poked? Carrick's mandibles twitched. Yes. And number 4, you have absolutely no idea what happens when we figure this out. He looked up at the sky. "No," he said softly, "we do not." Mia followed his gaze. "You could have just left," she said. "Gone away. Pretended you never saw us." Prohibition protocols debated that option. Carrick's had too. "We could have, but then one day your transmissions would stop being implausible dramas and start being ship-to-ship tactical chatter. You would reach for the stars anyway. We would meet then, in ignorance and suspicion." He turned to her. "I prefer this. An awkward, premature conversation with one human whose first reaction to me was to make more coffee." She snorted. "What do you want from us, Carrick?" He considered. "I want you to live," he said. "I want you to grow up without becoming what my people were under the Atherion, nervous predators circling a throne we could never claim. You think we'll claim it?"